Hi, I'm looking at some things concerning Fukushima and nuclear power. This shows the plant when it was running fine. You can see this water, it's just like a river of water it takes to cool this place. And once the power gets cut off, then it needs, once the plants get flooded and the power gets cut off, then it needs external power. First of all, the diesel generators didn't work. Second of all, the power lines went down, so everything melted from the insane terrorists who built these things. Now here's the water that hit this. You can see they cut the land away to build it closer to the water. So therefore it's more susceptible to tidal waves, and here's what happened. Look, this is inside the plant, inundated, flooded, destroyed. Nothing's going to work anywhere near that water. It's just going to wreck it. So the terrorists built 4 more down here, Diana, and then there's 6 here. So this would have got hit with about a similar wave. Never hear anything about that, but they all shut down the same day and haven't restarted. So are they melted through? I'm not sure. So here's a good example. They cut the land away to build it closer to the water, which means they've built it for like a 6-meter tidal wave, and like a 15-meter tidal wave came in. So the terrorists aren't very smart when they build stuff. They just want to make money. That's all they care about. So what happens when a wave comes in? Ta-da! The world starts to die. And that came from an earthquake, right? Well, I think that was I can't remember what that was. But let's listen to Dutch Sense. Here was an 8.2 that's at 600 miles deep. Happened on the 18th. So this will work its way up with these arrows, and there's lots of nuclear power plants around here, even on the west coast of the U.S., wherever. The next one's going to get flooded at some point because the terrorists don't care about you or me.
Over in Indonesia, down below the plate, in an area called the asthenosphere. And you already know that we are looking for larger earthquake activity to develop out larger than this 6.5 that hit last night. Well, the biggest, deepest, and the largest, deepest earthquake we've ever seen has struck within the past few hours over here down below Fiji, coming in at 8.2 magnitude.
So this is the biggest one in a decade anyway. I think he's just talking about his time on YouTube. But anyway, this is huge, and it's going to get bigger as it comes to the surface.
Now, subsequent other deep earthquakes have struck even deeper than the deep 8.2, going up to 600-something kilometers deep, and this deep earthquake striking at 550 to 560 kilometers deep. Now, the asthenosphere is a term that's used by professionals to describe the semi-melted magma below the plate. And carrying on up to the north. Now, there's a 3-way halfway point between this 4.6, this cluster of 6s, and these deep earthquakes and movement up in Kuril Islands. Now, the 3-way halfway point comes in where our previous sets of quakes struck, near Tokyo, up to the coast of Honshu, Fukushima, I mean. So we get right there, and that's another middle halfway fulcrum point between 3 sets of quakes. We go further. We get to a middle fulcrum point here, coast of Kamchatka, mouth of the Aleutian Island chain. Halfway point between what? Between these 2 sets of quakes, of course. Again, going up and around the bend. We go over into Alaska, another halfway fulcrum point right next to Bogoslav volcano. We go over further to the east, then, did I say go over to the west? We go over to the east, sorry. We go further over to the east, and we get here, right in the middle of the coast of British Columbia, Haida Gwaii, in between Alaska and the cluster of quakes down in the United States. Getting here onto the coast of the United States, we have to take the slow slip into account, which I'll tell you about in a minute, but I can already tell you, we're about to go through the roof all the way around the plate by the end of this coming week. We were already looking for a 6 to be striking by tomorrow night. I'm going to take that up a notch and tell people that we're going to look for a mid-range to upper 6 to be striking off the west coast, which then means California is going to get hit, Midwest United States going to get hit by the end of this coming week. So I'm seeing this all the way out and through to the end of this coming week as the force comes up and across. Now, what are the magnitudes going to be?
So in the next week, I think Portland might feel an earthquake, and all those other areas he discussed, you might want to keep some water and extra gloves near you. So that's what happens in the good old earthquake, and the earthquakes are not going to stop, and they are getting worse over time. So why would not more of these get flooded? It just looks horrible future. So number 2, they really haven't done a heck of a lot with it. I think they just said it looks good, so we'll just let it melt and not worry about it too much, because they've done the other 3 they've been working on in their fashion. So here they've almost starting to put the dome on 3, and nothing's been done to 2. They're just a little ladder here. So now they're putting on this outside door, that door they got in to look at the working floor of this reactor. So here you go. Now I'm not sure why they need so much out here, but I think this is where that access door was cut through on number 2 when the robots went in. So here's a robot that doesn't show a heck of a lot. So I'm in number 2. Film. It just shows all this molten material. So everything melted in the reactor, probably down through. It looks like the radiation is so powerful, the electronics will barely record a picture. So that's probably corium, they call melted material. So anyway, number 2 is just all melted. And this says, some of these pictures are real small, so this says, crippled Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant needs international help. So I'm not sure what year this is, but it looks like it happened shortly after. Japan has a history of struggling to face up to the past. So whether it has the crisis at the stricken nuclear plant at Fukushima under control, as it claims, has to be a concern. Anyway, just more silliness. And then radiation effects. What does radiation do to us? Well, it sort of kills us. And it really affects your DNA. It affects plants' DNA and all human, animal life form on Earth. So here's a piece of corn that its DNA was messed up. So I wouldn't recommend eating corn like that. Here's another piece of corn that's just looks like a couple chicken legs down here. And then I think the next one is this. So I saw some human pictures in there to show you, but I decided this is bad enough. I see 7 legs. So that's why we don't want this nuclear power crap, terrorists. Okay.